Well, I'd like to use this drawing to illustrate the use of the trim command. You use trim to, as the name implies, cut off a section of an entity. So I have a line entity here, another line entity which I'll make it easier for you to see. I've made magenta and thickened it up, but I want to start the trim command and chop that little bit to the left off. I could start the trim command from the modify toolbar. That's this option over here, or from the modify drop down. So let's pick trim. First prompt says select the edge objects or cutting edge, so it's the magenta line in this case. Then I right click and I'm asked to select the object to trim. We can also use shift and select to trim. So I pick that one and you can see magically it disappears. I can then right click and repeat the trim by picking as a cutting edge this line now, and right click and then chop that little piece off, and I'll return the colour to by layer, and so you can see the trim managed to chop both bits off those two line segments that were previously overlapping. Well, in a sense, the extend command is the opposite of the trim command, and so if I say modify and extend, it works in much the same way as the trim command. I'm asked to select edge objects, this one here will do, then I right click. Now I'm asked to select the object to extend, so we want to extend that line in this case to that boundary, and we are done, and then we could remove that line. Well, both trim and extend have got modifiers in them which enable you to switch from one to the other. I'll try and demonstrate. So let's start the trim command. Let's imagine as the cutting edge I've nominated those two nearly horizontal lines, and then I right click, and at this point I hold the shift select down and shift select to extend, and I can do that and we're done. So although we started the trim command, we actually changed our mind and used extend within it. So they're both almost interchangeable. Well, of course, other entities can be cutting edges. I've drawn a circle at the intersection there. So let's start the trim command and pick the cutting edge. So we'll pick the circle and then pick inside the circle, and you can see the result. The circle itself works as a cutting edge. The order of picking is important. Let's undo. This time, repeating the trim command, I'll pick both the pink and magenta lines, both lines, and right click and the object to trim. You see I can take segments of that circle out of the way in one go with the trim command. So you can have multiple cutting edges, and depending on the order of pick, you may get a different result. Well, when faced with, in a sense, a double trim, we might want to remove both the overhanging segments. Let's get rid of that arc, the remainder of that circle. You might find the fillet command works effectively for you. So it's modify, fillet, and we're asked to pick the first line, or it could be a polyline, and then the second. Make sure that you pick past its midpoint, so I'll just pick here, and you can see that both lines get trimmed automatically, both hanging edges get taken off, and I can escape from there. The important thing is, let's undo, and we'll have those. Whoops, we can't actually undo the way I want it to undo. We need perhaps one day to just modify that undo so that we could get back to our lines that hang over like so. Let's repeat that fillet command, and we're asked to select the first object, so we'll do just as we did before, but I'll right click. See, we can set a radius at this point. Because we set a radius of 0, which is the default, we neatly trimmed both overhanging pieces. So I'm not sure of the scale we're working to here, let's set 100mm radius and we'll see how we go. We'll pick the second line there. No, I suspect that radius is too big. Let's drop the radius to 5 and we'll pick the second line. We may need to repeat the fillet and repeat that again. That is not working, so let me just use the distance command and we'll measure from there to the radius. It needs only 0.36. So fillet, first object we select, set the radius 0.3 or thereabouts, and then the second object to fillet, and in goes our fillet with a fillet radius of 0.3. So fillet can be really handy. You can effectively do a double trim when you are using it. So I hope that's covered pretty much all that trimming, editing, filleting and so on in gCADPlus.